Hey, so I got this great question from someone asking, do we have, can I highlight the advantages of using Octiga as opposed to using maybe a monitoring SIEM or buying into additional Microsoft 365 licenses? So as opposed to showing the differences between us and our competitors, sometimes people are kind of thinking, should I go with Octiga as opposed to trying to do this all myself with Microsoft and maybe bumping up licenses with the clients? And so let me talk to that. So what we found is that doing this yourself in Office 365 is just not scalable. Um, that's what all the MSPs are telling us. Whether you use scripts or whether you have someone laborious going into every single environment and trying to handle all these sort of breach type situations or configuration type systems is just takes too long. It might be because Microsoft moved the UIs. It might be because you have to tweak your scripts or whatever that might be. But it just wasn't providing the ROI for people. And when you do that across 50 tenants, that's when you really, really get the bump. Comparing us to Microsoft is, we're not really a replacement for Microsoft security. We are a management of Microsoft security so that it is actually deliverable. But there is times in which we provide enhancements where you would only be able to get some of that functionality by bumping up Microsoft SKUs as well. So let me talk through a few of those. So multi-tenant complete posture control. You can't really do this across multiple tenants in Microsoft. It just takes too long. Of course, best practices. The best thing, the close thing around best practices with Microsoft 365 is probably Microsoft Secure Score. I have three problems with Secure Score. You can't win the game, and you have to remember the fact that you couldn't win the game, and that 15% that you couldn't get, that was supposed to be there for some reason you couldn't remember. With your own baselines, we give you best practices out of the box. You can then tweak those best practices and you can win that game. So they're all your own baselines and you can get them agreeing across the board. And Octiga deal with the fact that exceptions are the rules. So, you just have this, one particular instance where that person just can't have MFA, and that could be reasonable because we're all humans and we run real businesses. And so you need to build that into your green, right? So it could be 99 people with MFA, one person with MFA, but you're green across the board, right? And that's what Octiga allows in terms of its best practice, best baseline sets with exceptions. And of course, the other thing that Secure Score doesn't do is it doesn't alert you on the fact that you're going up and down in the score, and it doesn't do remediation. You have to do that all yourself. And of course, Octiga gives you the alerts, brings you to the place, press the button, remediate the problem. And so that's sort of the advantage of us over just directly trying to do this yourself in Microsoft. And of course, you get the ultimate visibility. In terms of the monitoring, you could do this with the SIEM. SIEMs tend to have a bit of setup, perfectly good solutions. And then you have to try and feed all those SIEMs into a single overview for your 50 clients or 10 clients or whatever it might be. And that becomes a bit of a labor, whereas Octiga is just out of the box. We immediately scan against our risk characterizers, and we also scan out the pass logs immediately, zero config off the bat. And then we provide a couple of features that you kind of would get with higher SKUs in Microsoft. So for example, here, we've got here, I'm triaging, rapid triage is what we're all about, giving this to a level 1 engineer, the confidence to go, I know what's happening, and I have the confidence to press the button. Successful login originated from an IP that's not in your allowed countries list, and I want to see what the geo is around this. And then I want to tailor the system so that geo is safe. And of course, you can add safe countries in Octiga. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to say, oh, this is somebody working from Riga or wherever this was, and I just want to make this safe for that one person for a particular time period, just in that region, and apply that, and that'll recharacterize the risk. So you're kind of, you're getting that sort of tailored regional stuff that you might be getting out of a mix of user alerts with advanced Azure Active Directory licenses or with conditional access policies. And this kind of gives you some of that. As for what licenses I would recommend with Office 365 to work well with Octiga, I always think that having some conditional access policies is very powerful, because security defaults is a bit of a shoot and ask questions later, whereas conditional access policies, you don't get a lot of options with security defaults. Conditional access policies are fantastic because you can really tailor it to your organization, but it does require Azure Active Directory Premium or P1 or P2. Now there's cheap ways of acquiring that. It doesn't require too much. And then of course Octiga has baselines around conditional access policies. We're adding more very shortly actually, and will allow you to tailor those. And so you'll get a lot of bump from having Azure Active Directory Premium or P1 or P2. Beyond that, those things are optional. You don't necessarily need them. Octiga will give you pretty good security with all the rest of your stuff. It's better to go pretty reasonable security across 50 tenants before you try and go scale up, to the top on any one of them, because that's how you scale your business. So that's just a few answering a few questions around, thinking about Office 365, how Octiga fits in, how we compare or don't compare, and what are we providing that Microsoft or not. So I hope that was useful for people.